we got here. Bond, this is Roberts, and this is Elmers. I'm super glad that I picked up these laundry bags, considering these were not my washes. All right, so let's look. So we've got some linty lint, that's to be expected. We've got some crumbling, a little bit of crumbling. I don't know if you can see, but I've got some cracking that is occurring. It does still feel a little damp, so I'm wondering if that is attributing to that. I can tell that they have kind of picked up a little bit of moisture because the clarity regained a lot more of that milky, I'm not quite yet dry look to it. I'm wondering if that will fade, and I'll probably let them sit out a couple hours to see if that changes. As far as the backing materials themselves, so this is burlap. I definitely see a lot more flaking on the edges of the burlap. I think that comes back down to the open weave that the burlap has. There's just more for it to like fall out of. Like I can just kind of like pick it out of those big squares, and you can just see more of the cracking on it. The burlap also has frayed a little bit. I was seeing a lot of, not a lot of talk, but some rumbles of burlap not being the best for longevity and it breaking down with moisture specifically. I am seeing fraying on the burlap. This is the extent of the lint that has come off. A lot of what I'm seeing, I'm realizing, is fraying from the burlap. In fact, almost all of this is from the burlap. So this is our monk's cloth swatch. We can see that it did start to like fray on the edges. Let's look at the primary tufting cloth. We don't have any fraying from the primary tufting cloth. Next up, I think I'm gonna take a look at Roberts. Now, I don't know if you can see. No. Oh man, you can see how dingy this bag looks. All of that, bits of adhesive, that yellow, gritty, grainy sort of cast, that's absolutely pieces of the adhesive. Wow. So this is what we have, and if you remember, our code burlap is on the red. So we can tell that Roberts did not hold the burlap together in the way that Bond did. Oh man, I can just look at that. It just completely disintegrated. I expected the Roberts to kind of break down, and I did wonder if the backing fabric would have any sort of bearing on if it did break down in a certain way. And as you can see, burlap baby, you're a great option for tufting, but I mean, you shouldn't be washing your stuff like this. I wanted to know what would happen if I did wash this, hence me doing this in the first place. I don't expect you to be washing your stuff, and I do not recommend. Let's take a closer look. This is on the burlap. And you can just see it has completely just, when you think about how big this was Roberts on the primary backing fabric. Yes, the primary backing fabric was blue. And this is the burlap piece. And you can see, based on how much blue around these edges, just how much that burlap disintegrated and just shrank down. So as we can see, burlap is like out of there. Burlap clocked out early, he said, I'm not doing this, I quit. Let's take a look at monk's cloth. I might have cheated a little bit with monk's cloth. Originally, I had intended to like finish the backs of all of these, but I felt like that would block what had actually happened to the adhesive underneath, so I decided not to do that, but this one got the edges folded in. I can see that there was a bit of fraying, but because the edges were folded in, it didn't continue past those points. You can see the Roberts on here. It's, again, got that sort of like milky, I'm not dry. It's not that caramelly color that it has when it's dry. And I do wonder how it's going to dry out. Primary backing fabric, we did have some fraying. Because the Roberts is a softer adhesive, I am not surprised to see fraying with that one. Oh my gosh, look, I am stuck. Stuck. So it looks like it started to be kind of like broken down. Okay. can I attribute this to? What does this remind me of? Oh, it looks like gummy in this spot. You see that stretch? My hands are so sticky. There's so much residual, just like tack. Like when I threw these in here, there wasn't really any tack left, but this definitely has regained some stick to it. And then just those little beads, you can kind of see it in here, just little beads of adhesive that have like come off. I'm like shocked by this. This is wild to me. I was expecting some breakdown, but I wasn't expecting this much breakdown. Burlap definitely gets some knocks. Ah! All right, so now that we've seen how Bond and Roberts have done, now it's time for Elmers. And boy, oh boy. This is a bag of yarn. This is a bag of scraps right now. So before I even open this, I had the least amount of expectations for Elmers. It is a washable glue. We know this. But I'd always kind of wondered if it was just like washable before it dries, or if it was after it's set, it's got a bit more integrity. Oh man. Let's see what we did.
Emotional damage.
This is absurd. If you've been backing your rugs with Elmers, don't you put that in the washing machine. This is where, so these are ropes of burlap that have clearly got tangled with yarn pieces and bits and have created a little braid, little tassels, if you will. Oh man. So we've got an even amount of loss from all three swatches. You can see this is a healthy mix of RGB happening right now. Maybe leaning a little heavy red. I mean, look at this poor little burlap swatch. Look at this. Oh baby. Oh, you just gave right on up. Man. And you can actually see where it's fraying and where those fibers are just sliding out. And then even deeper, you can see just the pieces. Oh wow. You can just tear those right out. Yeah. This feels like a fresh tuft. Wow. Burlap across the board did not hold up to washing. So not that again, do not wash your rugs. This is purely an experiment for like just curiosity's sake over here. Kitty cat meow. Man, the monk's cloth frayed out even more than well, I forgot. My monk's cloths were a little bit smaller by comparison because I had to do them on my mini frame. But look at that. Look how teeny tiny it is now. You can see that there's a lot of fraying that happened. Those edges opened right on up and just started ejecting yarn. Primary backing as well, like, man, look, I've got like a whole section that just like fell all the way out. Even, yeah, well, this is tangled with some burlap, but the primary also just completely pulling apart with the way that this out, like, look, I'm just, no effort, and it's coming right out. This looks like it has never been glued. With this level of deterioration, I would caution against even spot cleaning with Elmers. You're better off just, don't do much more than that. Wow, look at all this loss. Wow, wow, wow. As the final part of this, I think I'm gonna leave these swatches for a couple hours and let them dry and see if that sort of milky look that doesn't dissipate a little bit as it has a chance to dry out. But this is like a wild ride. I'm super intrigued by all of these results that I've gotten. So I'm gonna let these dry for a couple hours and then I'll check back. And by letting it dry for a couple hours, I mean, I'm gonna get lunch. It's been a few days, the swatches are completely dry, and I just want to take a second look at them to see if there's been any changes. Elmer's still feels the same as it did when it was damp.
It's a piece of fabric.
This is just fabric. If you told me there had never been glue on this at all, I would absolutely believe you because it just feels like fabric and yarn, and that's it. The yarn pulls out freely with zero effort, and looking at something like burlap, it's just falling out with just mild word. Elmer's definitely did not hold up to washing, not even a little bit. Roberts has completely lost that tacky feeling that it had. Its coloring has returned to that sort of tan color that it has when it's cured. I'm actually surprised by how not tacky it is because as we saw in the video where I first made these swatches and discussed when we were talking about Roberts just stays tacky for a long period of time. And I fully expected this to be tacky for a while, and now it doesn't even want to stick to itself. Like, because I can visibly see that quite a bit of it washed out, it's obvious that it's lost a lot of its holds. Like you can pull it out, like it's not staying in here. Maybe if it had backing, it would stop that, but I don't know that I think that would be the case. While it's not as bad as Elmer's, it's definitely not at 100%. And then looking at it on a backing fabric like the burlap, you can see that it just does not have the hold or integrity to hold up to washing, especially like I feel like if I washed this once or twice more, this whole thing would fall apart and it would probably look closer to the Elmer's. I think it's a no on the Roberts too. Of the three, Bond obviously had the best response to washing in that it had almost no response to washing. If you hadn't told me they'd been washed and I'd never seen them, I would never have guessed. Integrity wise, I mean, it's still got all of its integrity right now. The yarn is like falling apart before it's coming out of the backing. So it definitely is the best of all of them there. But the one thing that I have noticed with Bond is that while it is maintaining its strength and the pieces aren't just like pulling out or falling out, it is more flexible. There are significantly more cracks on the back. So while right now those cracks are just manifesting as greater flexibility, like they're not nearly as stiff as they were when they were first done, I feel like if I were to put Bond through repeated washings, or even just wash it a couple more times, the adhesive would eventually crumble and crack and be further degraded to the point where it does affect its ability to hold the yarn into the backing fabric. Which, if you look at older rugs, is a thing that just can happen in a rug's lifetime. However, it's not something that you want to occur like months or even a year or two after you just bought it. So, can you wash your tufted rugs? I would not. I would keep it to a damp cloth if you absolutely have to. If you have a rug that has been backed with Bond, you might be able to get away with a little bit of light cleaning with one of those like handheld rug steam vac things. If you were not sure how your rug had been backed, I would definitely err on the side of caution and just keep cleaning to a minimum if you can, because you definitely don't want to end up with an Elmer's situation. These are not ruggable, okay? These are tufted works of art. These are handmade things that should be treated as such. That concludes our glue tests. I don't know about you guys, but it's definitely some eye-openers and questions answered for me. I'm Sam. I tested all of that, and you should make something too.
Sam made that.
Oh, that's not the button. Bye.